Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soul Seekers podcast, where we believe that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure as we share our mission of mentorship is conservation. To learn more about everything we do, check out our show on Carbon TV or go to soulseekersnation.com. Freedom on, everybody, and stay soulful. If you want to take your shooting experience to the next level, then check out Cole-TAC gear for 100% made in America products. Cole-TAC manufactures specialty gear designed for long-range shooting, hunting, and other tactical applications. From their support bags, suppressor covers, shooting mats, and a whole lot more, Cole-TAC is creating tough, durable, and innovative gear for both civilian and professional markets. Go to Cole-TAC.com to see all that they have to offer. That's COLE-TAC.com. If you are looking to get a new rifle or build your own, look no further than Kelbly's. Kelbly's actions and rifles have a higher level of accuracy and hold 92 world records set on either one of their rifles or rifle actions. Whether you're looking for an ultralight mountain rifle or wanting to compete in precision rifle shooting, Kelbly's has you covered. Go to Kelbly.com to find out more or give them a call as their customer service is the best. That's KELBLY.com. Kelbly's. If you're looking to take your hunting to another level, there's no better way to do it than by subscribing to onX Hunt. If you want to get better at hunting and go deeper into your scouting, onX is the #1 GPS app for that. Join the millions of hunters who trust onX Hunt to find more game, discover new access, and hunt smarter. If you want to know more about onX, go to onxmaps.com/hunt or download their app today for a free trial. If you are wanting to become more accurate and deadly with your shooting, one of the best things you can do is upgrade your trigger with a Timney. Timney triggers are 100% made in America and have been since their founding, providing a crisp, reliable, and repeatable trigger break every time. I'll be shooting Timney triggers in my guns this year, and I hope you'll join me in shooting the world's finest trigger. Go to timneytriggers.com to get yours today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Seekers podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack. Today I'm joined by one of my good buddies and an awesome human being, a warrior of the homestead, and someone who makes really awesome actions and rifles. That's Ian Kelbly of Kelbly Rifles, coming at you on an Instagram Live /podcast tonight. And so we are going to be covering a few different topics, obviously shooting, obviously rifles. But Ian's a father, and I am a father, and I just recently decided I can't wait for the next good day or the next year or when my kids get older. And so I got a membership to a rifle range here in the state of Texas, Gravestone. Shout out to Gravestone, great place. And I took all three of my kids shooting this last weekend, 10, 8, and 5. And it was an experience, and I got to talk with you, Ian, about your experience as teaching your kids to shoot and what that's like and the process and everything else that you got going on. So, oh yeah, I love that. Is that is that photos from the very first time you taking your kids out?
No, that was probably, I don't know. That was a couple years after they had kind of started. That was when they really started getting the hang of it,
Yeah.
My son's into it way more than my daughter is. I mean, my daughter got to come to a long range KYL match, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to like hit a target at 400 yards?" And she was like, "No, I'm good." I'm like, "Okay, like, all right, cool." Like,
Really?
and she shoots well, I mean, it started with the basis of building guns and and having guns in the house and things like that. Like, I don't want my children to ever be curious.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, the worst thing you can have is a child that is curious about something. You as a father have to make sure that they know exactly what's going on and exactly what they can do with them. So my kids, for their fourth Christmas, I got them some Savage Rascals and taught them open sight 22 rimfire shooting first. Since then, Gunner has taken a liking to the suppressed on Schutz 22, and that kid will slam 400 or 500 rounds in a couple hours on a weekend. So, luckily, I have a giant bucket of just crap 22 ammo that I'm like, go ahead, shoot away, bud.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way to do it. But I just recently built a 223 bolt gun. That I was going to run in a match and put a big suppressor on it, AB Raptor 10 on it, and it sounds like a 22.
Really?
And I mean, he was out slamming with that thing at 100 yards the other weekend, just having a blast. You know, um,
That's so cool.
it,
You're bringing
it's
up a
fun.
lot of stuff that I'm like, oh, I want to ask questions about this. First off,
Yeah,
let's dive into. You built a 223 bolt gun with all the different calibers out there. Is that the caliber like you chose for your kid because it's cheaper to reload, or any of that, or what? Why 223?
I didn't build it for my kid. Me and a partner were supposed to go run Mammoth this year, and secondary shooters supposed to be 308 or 223 only. I chose 223 because of the weight, and everything's inside of 800. So I was just gonna run factory 77 grain ammo, and just run that gun. I mean, it was stupid light. I had a single pool sky pod on it, and the whole rifle weighed 12 pounds with a loaded mag.
Wow.
So it was all about being light and efficient with that rifle. And just so happened, my son wanted to shoot it. And then the other weekend, he's like totally doesn't like the recoil of big guns like my 6.5. But he saw how my buddy's 300 PRC we built him was shooting,
Hmm.
and actually got him to sit behind the 300 PRC and let that thing bark off.
Sweet.
But it has one of our big claw brakes on it, so it's like a kitty cat rifle. It's like a 308, and he was like, "Oh, this is cool." So it's fun seeing as they get older, their interest gets piqued more and more. My kids have shot my SBR 9mm semi-auto, little Odin Works SBR I have. They've shot our little SBR 223 bolt gun we have. Um, I've got them on the AR before on Glock pistols and stuff, but with kids, pistols is a really difficult one. Like I'll only load one round in at a time,
Hmm.
just because their hands aren't big enough to really hold on to it. But no, 223 is it actually ended up working out really cool for my kids because it is super low recoil, but at the same time, it's stupid cheap. I mean, I can buy factory ammo for like 40 cents a round
Right.
and not really worry about it.
Yeah.
If he burns 100 rounds, it's $40. I mean, if you're going to spend $40 on your kids doing something, why not, you know,
So true.
why not shooting some targets and learning,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
heck, you burn $40 at a baseball tournament on a weekend on hot dogs and cotton candy.
Totally. Totally. Okay, so I went and took all three of my boys shooting this last weekend, and I was like, okay, I debated whether I pull out a 10-22 and start them,
Mhm.
with the 22 long rifle, or go bolt gun with the 22 Creed that we got this last year from you guys. And I was like, okay, well, 22 long rifle, even though it's no like it seems like that would be ideal. I actually chose to go with the bolt gun because of the control of doing one round at a time. Right?
Bingo.
Like one round, I'm controlling this action until I watch them and working with them and all that. And it actually worked out perfect. And that 22 Creedmoor, I that's a phenomenal round. Like a lot,
Yes.
really fun. Ammo,
Yes.
that is like I need to just stock up on as much of that as possible.
You're in the land of 22 Creedmoor down in Texas,
I
so
know it's
it's a
perfect.
good place to be.
Yeah.
No, and bolt gun is great. That's why I got my kids Savage Rascals. Um, bolt gun 22. I didn't want the chance of them touching off more than one round.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? like owning a rifle range here, the family has had a rifle range here since I believe 1976, something like that. And we've seen at the range people put kids or inexperienced shooters behind the wrong firearms. Everybody's seen the videos of somebody putting a newbie behind a full auto and them ended up blasting the top of the range and missing berms and stuff like that. And that's the last thing you want is when you're teaching your kids something, you want calm demeanor and somebody touching off more than one round in a row does not lead to calm demeanors.
Right.
Um, you, you want your children and any amateur to enjoy shooting. Um, so bolt guns really lend themselves to anywhere from a first time shooter to an experienced shooter to truly enjoy shooting that rifle.
Uh-huh.
'Cause you can stack shots at 100 yards, at 50 yards, 25 yards, have complete control of the firearm as you're teaching somebody, and then next thing you know, you can turn around and be like, "All right, you see that piece of steel at 500? Like, go ahead and shoot that."
Right. Right.
And they can get a hit on it, and they're just like, "Wow, this is so easy." And it's like, well, yeah, sometimes.
I was telling my wife I brought him home after taking him shooting and I was like, babe, I think they had a blast. I had to really focus, like obviously safety paramount, number
Yes.
one. But as a father, I was like, okay, I want them to enjoy this. So I also need to make sure that I'm giving them a little bit of not too much. I don't want to fire hose them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like give them a couple things, maybe one thing to focus on. And everything
Yeah.
else is let's just make sure the gun's pointed in a safe direction and you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I did take him out to the steel targets and had first round impact from my kids on a coyote target at 710 yards. And I was like, wow. It helps when your dad provides a weapon that's pretty doggone accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding, right? That's kind of the big deal. Like do all the legwork up to it so they can truly enjoy it. Um, yeah, that's really cool. And you'll notice like as you take them to the range more, you can let them graduate up to things. Luckily, with our family owning the range, I can have my kids do a little more than like what a normal person can have their kids do at a rifle range. There's a lot of rules and things like that um, at rifle ranges and different pistol ranges and stuff like that for what you can allow
Mhm.
a younger shooter to do. But like now it's to the point with my son who's 10 where if he wants to go shoot 223, like I'm like, all right, go out and look at the range. I can be in here loading ammo or helping a customer with a rifle, and I can be like, all right, man, take it out there, go set up and go shoot,
Yeah.
and he can do it. And it's such a blessing to be able to watch your kids grow like that. Because I mean, I remember grandpa and dad teaching me how to shoot and everything like that, and it was all bench guns, and it wasn't as cool as like shooting off a bipod in a bag,
Yeah.
because like you got the pedestal rest and the rear bag and all that, and they're just super accurate guns and they're cool. But like the triggers on the bench rest rifles I started out shooting, are like 2 ounces, whereas I can send my kid with a 14-ounce trigger on a 223 and know he's not going to just accidentally touch one off, not on target.
Right.
And now I can start teaching him things like, okay, I go hang up the target. And when he gets there, I'm like, all right, you're going to look for the black and orange Visi shot target. It's on this post over here, and start like allowing him to learn target identification and like how to call somebody into a target and things like that.
Oh, okay.
And it's pretty cool to like see him learn that stuff too. Because the ultimate goal is to get him out to long range. to where I can be like, all right, you're going to go second target rack on the left-hand side. You're going to engage, the second target from the left on that rack, and have him be able to find it, and know what I'm talking about as I walk him in.
Yeah.
So that it's cool to just see the progression.
I
So
I told my kids, I was like, "Hey, I want you to enjoy shooting because this is something you and I can go compete in. We all could compete for a trophy together." And they're like, "Are you serious? We could, compete in the same league?" And I was like, "Yeah. Do you want to?" They're like,
mhm,
"Yeah, Dad, let's do that." You know?
yeah, and the 22 leagues out there are super welcoming to young guns. Like NRL 22 is run by one of my friends, Tyler Frainer, and they have matches all over the country. PRS 22 is a thing now too. They have matches all over the country as well. And I'm not as familiar with PRS 22 as I am NRL 22, but the kids really seem to enjoy that, and they take a spotlight at those type of matches because they allow kids to walk the prize table in between the top guns of like the adults and everything like that. So, dude, you'll have these kids like show up to the national championship and be able to pick up, $3,000 and $4,000 optics off the table. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, it's like I just had a customer. He ordered a custom rifle from us, and then all he wanted was a chassis and a pre-fit barrel put on his old Bergara for his son, and a new trigger put in it. And we're like, yeah, we'll do that for you. Since you're getting a custom gun, we'll do that. We normally don't do it. And dude, the guy's sending me pictures now of like him and his son shooting at 600 yards together.
Mm,
And it's just so cool. Like his gun, he did a 6 millimeter Creedmoor for his son.
yeah.
Um, so he could get box ammo for it, and shoots well at distance. So I thought it was a really good choice too to go with that as well.
Dude, that's cool. Are those NRL 22s? Is everyone shooting bolt action, or is anyone shooting like a tactical solutions semi-auto action?
There's there's both. You have bolt action guys. A lot of guys run like the CZ 457. Like my Onschutzes are built in tactical stocks with, full Arca rails or full Picatinny rails on them for attachments and everything to be able to shoot that type of stuff too. Um, but yeah, you have everything from CZs to Onschutz. I don't know if there's many Walthers out there or anything, but you have the tactical solution stuff. Um, I think like some upgraded 1022s as well. And yeah, there's just all kinds of stuff you can compete with. I mean, if you're going to get a kid into competing like that, I would highly recommend a bolt action though. Just, just it's just safer. I mean,
Yeah.
having the bolt open is always safer than any type of trigger safety or anything like that.
Yeah, so
Like,
true. So
yeah, you can move that rifle onto a barricade, the bolt's open, nothing's gonna happen. You get on target, you close the bolt, and then you're good to go.
yeah.
It really helps teach, finger off the trigger until you're on target as well.
Well, let's talk some of this stuff. If for the people who are on this podcast or end up listening to this podcast, and they have children that they haven't taken shooting at yet, or they're taking a new hunter who's newer to shooting and firearms, what are some of the things that you want new shooters to focus on? Like to keep it simple, like is there, don't wrap your thumb, breathe out, or like what are the things that you have found success with your own children when you're teaching them?
Uh, well, first off is muzzle down range. Um, Always muzzle down range. If you're carrying the firearm, muzzle up, muzzle down. You know, don't flag people, which is pointing the muzzle at anybody. Um, the second big thing is finger off the trigger. Um, you know, anything but anything you point that firearm at, do not pull the trigger unless you're willing to destroy it. And one big thing with kids too that I found Like the first outing we did was I put some gallon jugs down there with some water in them and let them shoot it to see what happens. Like this is what can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like it'll go right through it. Other things that I like for kids too. Like I have some plastic bottle targets. They're like on a string, and I can hang those up. And you shoot them, and they swing. And then they're like, "Whoa!" It goes all the way through that super hard, thick plastic. And it really helps like trigger in their minds like this is destructive. What
Yeah.
this hit is destructive. Um, Steel targets work good too. A lot of ranges have different things that you can't shoot and things like that as well. And one thing I've always exposed my kids to as well, living out in the country is, if we trap something and shoot it, like varmints and things like that, like I never hid from them what happens to that animal or having them involved with, you know, dispatching of that animal.
Right.
Because I want them to see what a firearm can do to something. Um, so that way they become the best proponent to their friends of, hey, don't mess with that,
Right.
because that's always my biggest fear as a parent is, when your kids start going to other people's houses and stuff like that, eh, and if that house isn't willing to expose their children to firearms the way you are, you want your kids to understand, like, hey, this person's, went and got their dad's pistol and they're playing with it and stuff like that. I actually, at church, one of the guys on the safety team with me was telling me a story of he got a call from one of his kids because they were at a friend's house and the kids got a pistol out and they were playing with it.
Mm.
And, they left the area, went back into the house and immediately called their dad and was like, "Hey, come get me. Like, I
Yeah.
need you to get me out of this."
Yeah.
Which is the biggest thing, I mean, that you want your kids to do if that happens. So, past like just the fundamentals of gun safety, which is muzzle down range, finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire, know your backstop, anything that you're going to pull the trigger on, know that you're going to destroy it. um, Once you get past that, the biggest things that I find is flinching. So one thing that like, especially if you're chasing accuracy, right? So one thing I'll work with my kids on is like with their single shot rascals, when they were first starting out, and like Gunner would get frustrated, like, "Oh no, I shot a big group." And I'm like, "Well, you're flinching." He's like, "No, I'm not."
Oh
I'm like,
yeah.
"Yeah, as soon as you squeeze the trigger, you're tensing up, like
Yeah.
your whole body's tensing up. You're anticipating recoil." So what I started doing with them is I would act like I loaded the rifle and close the bolt for him, and then make him feel the flinch. And that is a great thing, even on new shooters, to teach as well. It's like, okay, I'm going to load your rifle for you, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you just sit there. I'm going to load your rifle, and you kind of just, I don't have an action here, but if put your hand so that they can't see the action and make it look like you put a round in there, and then just close the bolt for them.
Yeah.
So that way they don't know that it's an empty chamber, or they don't know it's a spent case that you put in there. And then then they feel the anticipated recoil because they're going to feel the flinch.
Interesting.
Um, Breathing is another big one. People have different ways of doing it. Some people like to shoot on the exhale. Some people like to shoot on the inhale. Um, like with my background, I've kind of taken both. It really depends on condition and what we're shooting in. There's times where I don't want to shoot on the exhale because like we just ran to that stage or something like that, and you're
Yeah.
kind of starving for oxygen and you're moving through it. So I'll shoot on inhale. Or if I catch a condition, I'll shoot wherever I'm at. It's just as you get more experience, it's about calming yourself, kind of getting in a meditative state and shooting and figuring out how to get your heart rate down, because that's going to be the biggest enemy to accuracy loss is your heartbeat, especially on lighter rifles, which has become a very big thing in the hunting world now.
Mm-hmm.
Is the extremely light rifles. You have an Nanook PH.
Yep.
It's pretty hard to shoot
Yeah.
if you get her on high power. Like a lot of our guns will test with like a March 10 to 60 on it. So I'll run it at like 40 power so I can really discern where I'm at on the target to do accuracy testing. And there's a lot of times on those hunting guns I have to hang weights off of them because I'll just watch my reticle
Just
and my
flicker.
heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
And it'll drive you absolutely wild. I mean, a 7-pound rifle is a hard gun to drive, especially with big magnum calibers that you're going to shoot like an elk with or something. So, trigger discipline, anticipating recoil, breathing. Another big one is the break habits of not being on the rifle the same way every time.
Mm.
What we would call in like bench rest or accurate or F class or even like KYL shooting where you're shooting off a bench or laying prone, stuff like that. Just bench handling skills, gun handling skills, to where you're on the rifle the exact same way every time. Which is why when you start going up to like the competition style rifles, you'll see the angled butt plates, you'll see the adjustable cheek pieces. Some guys run their scopes offset. It's so that way they're on the rifle the exact same way every time.
Interesting.
Um, Kind of think of it like in a race car where they have like a form fitted bucket. So you're always in the car the same way. Your weight dispersion is always the same. And that's a good way to make sure that you're on the rifle the same way, so the recoil's the exact same every time.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you've ever noticed this, like with training up for a hunt or anything like that, but if you sight in a rifle with a bipod on like a concrete bench, and then you go to the dirt, your point of impact can change.
Mm.
And then if you shoot like that, and then you shoot off a tripod, your point of impact can change. And it may not be your point of impact changing; it could be how you're taking the recoil changing.
The follow
You
through.
know, if,
Yeah.
yep, the follow through. Um, so one thing I like to do is load into the rifle. I always make sure I'm pressed up against it. I'm tight into the rifle. So that way, if I get a solid zero, I'm loaded into the bipod, I'm hard into the butt stock, and I'm really driving the rifle because if I'm going to be hunting with it, I know I'm going to shoot it off a tripod at some point. And I typically like to lock myself in on a tripod, where I have one hand on a leg of the tripod and I'm really pulling in. Because if it's windy out or anything like that, you're going to get movement in the tripod.
Uh-huh.
So I like to load into it, especially for hunting guns to make sure. Because I've watched plenty of people at distance miss targets because they soft pocket the butt stock, which soft pocket is basically you come off the gun a little bit and you give a little space between yourself and the rifle, and your recoil is totally different. So you're affecting the recoil of that rifle as the bullets coming out of the barrel.
Okay. Yeah,
Yep.
that makes sense. I was shooting out at distance this last weekend, and there was a hard wind, and I ended up missing to the left, and I was like, man, that doesn't make sense. Why am I missing to the left? And because I was offset on my gun, I wasn't square behind it, and I envisioning that I didn't have it tight in there, and
Yep.
yeah, room for error. I left room
Yep.
for error, and error happened.
Yep. Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, that's like, have you ever watched like the one MOA challenges on YouTube
No, but I
or
think I'm
any of
gonna
that
have to
type of
now.
stuff? Yeah. So, I'm trying to remember who it is. There's a guy out of Texas that does it. There's a couple of YouTube channels that do 1 MOA challenges. Some do it at 100 yards, some do it at 1,000 yards. Like the most recent one I watched was a guy in Texas. He was doing a 1 MOA challenge at 1,000 yards. And where was I going with this? Just those little minute changes in how you let the gun recoil or how you're on the gun is going to cause you to be more than an MOA off. Especially if you're canted sideways to the rifle more than normal, because you're not a square, so nothing's truly sitting parallel to you, right? As you have a buttstock in you. Oh
Right.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, Eric does. Yeah, he does a 500-yard one. Yeah. Thanks, Chris. I was thinking, I think there's Backfire, and he's out west somewhere too. He does a 100-yard one.
Texas
And then
Planking did one
that's
MOA
it.
at 1,000 yards.
Texas Planking. That's it. I couldn't think of it. My apologies, Texas Planking and Backfire and Eric Cortina. But I enjoy watching those because it really puts into perspective what it takes to shoot 1 MOA at distance at 100 yards, in any way. And it basically, there's where I was going with it. You can have a Ferrari, right? But you're not going to drive it like Max Verstappen.
Right.
Unless you're disciplined like Max Verstappen and you're nitpicking every little tiny thing that you do behind that rifle and noticing. If you have ever shot with like a super high end long range shooter, like a national champion, or somebody that has a military sniper background or a competition background of some point, you can typically hear them call their shots. Like there's a lot of times where you'll be behind the rifle, you break a shot, and you're like, "Oh, that went left." And it's because you know how it skipped off of your shoulder or how you loaded into the rifle, or the wind condition that you missed. So you really kind of get in tune with it. Um, oh yeah, a sub quarter at 1,000. That thing's crazy. I was reading his comment. That's 2 inches is nuts. I mean, if you think about it, I don't know if you know about F-class competition, but that's 600 and 1,000-yard competition. And those are 22-pound rifles, in a pedestal rest with like a Edgewood rear bag, or like um, a bald eagle rear bag, the leather ones with the ears.
Uh-huh.
They're shooting at 5-inch bulls at 1,000, 20-round strings, right?
Wow.
And like the records in that are 200 X or 200 points, which would be inside of a 1 MOA circle, right? And then I can't remember what the latest one was, but I know like one that's coming to mind is like 14 X's. So out of those 20 shots, 14 times they shot a half MOA group. And that's a $10,000 rifle that is literally specifically set up to do nothing but shoot at that exact same bullseye every single time.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. Like you watch this stuff on YouTube that these guys are doing, and you have these guys that are like, "Oh, I got a half MOA gun every time," and then you watch them miss every single shot. Because of wind condition, because of bad gun handling. One thing, if we're working with a shooter, that I try to discourage is coming off the rifle. If I'm shooting a group, my cheek weld staying, my hand placement on the bag staying, the only thing that's moving is my hand to run the bolt and pick up a piece of brass, and I'm trying to slowly move and limit my movements, so that way I stay on the rifle the exact same way every time. Because if you move back and forth on that optic, that also shifts your point of impact. You start getting the black shadow on the top and the bottom, on the sides. you're not on the optic the same way every time.
Interesting.
So that's that's a huge thing too. And even like the PRS or NRL guns that we run, they're set up at like a middle of the road length of pool because offhand is always a shorter length of pool than laying prone. So as soon as you know, prone out and like lift your head and your whole arm comes up, your length of pool kind of shifts out. So you kind of have to have an optic that has an eye box that's forgiving enough to be able to do that. Whereas like the F class guys are running, 10 to 60 power scopes, 8 to 80 power scopes, 5 to 50, 12 to 42, just huge magnification scopes
Yeah.
that don't have forgiving eye boxes like that. Which helps with the accuracy too. Cause if as soon as you see a shadow, I'm not on the gun right, and you can get back on it.
Hmm. Dude, there's so much to shooting. So much to shooting. Let's go back here to teaching the new shooters, the kids or all that.
Yeah.
Is it better to train somebody on a gun that's suppressed or not suppressed?
Suppressed.
Yeah. Reduce
a hundred
flinching as
percent.
much as possible.
Enjoyment level comes up as well. Um, like I said, my kids, Savage Rascals, since they have open sights on the front, we didn't thread them and put suppressors on them. But as soon as my kids learned open sights enough, like now, if there's nobody on the range, I can take them out with the Onschutz 22 with a suppressor on it with subsonic ammo, and we can have a conversation like you and I sitting here right now, no ear pro in,
Yeah.
they got eye pro on, no ear pro in, and just enjoying life, And then it's funny because even the kids will be like, "Oh man, somebody showed up and they got a loud rifle," So always, if if you have a suppressor and you have one on a smaller caliber rifle, always go for that.
Mm. That's
Yeah.
okay. That's good to know. That's good to know. I had somebody show up with um, a muzzle brake on the 100-yard range next to us, and I was like, "All right, boys, like you've been shooting suppress, and there's only one other shooter, and they're shooting a 10-22." I was like,
Yep.
"Get ready to hear some sounds," and they're like,
Yeah.
"What?" And then bam! Oh, okay, Dad, I get that. You know,
Yeah.
thanks,
Yeah.
thanks a
And I
lot,
mean,
buddy.
yeah. Nah. Like it's cool that they got exposed to that too though. Because not everybody has suppressors. You're not always going to have that kind of thing. Um, and it's good that they get exposed to it. Kind of the problem with kids and muzzle brakes though is if if they're at all like sensitive in their sinuses or in their hearing, anything like that, muzzle brakes can really mess with that. Especially, I mean, like, that muzzle brake there, you can see the angle
Oh
of
yeah.
the ports of that thing. All that, it's at you like this. So all that gas is coming back. So it's not too terrible on the shooter, but if you're off to the right or the left, it is absolutely brutal to sit beside something like that.
Right.
Like my beard's going sideways whenever somebody shoots beside me,
Oh,
I
that's
know it from experience.
right, right. Okay, so we're talking about we talked gun safety, talk breathing, talked all that. Um, wasn't it? And I am a noob when it comes to this type of stuff. My whole like getting better at shooting is one of my goals this year. Is you go to a range like an average hunter goes to a range and he's required to shoot off a bench. But how you
Right.
shoot off of a bench isn't necessarily how you're going to shoot prone or shooting off a tripod or, a downed log and getting square behind the rifle. And it's really interesting to see how the progression of shooting has advanced so much within like the last 15 years, 10 years, really. And
Yes.
people hate on long range hunting at times. It's like, well, yeah, only because this technology or the items didn't exist back then, right? Like it wasn't too long ago that people were hunting without rangefinders. right? So their shots
Right.
couldn't be that far. And now you add all this technology, a weapon-mounted laser rangefinder, like, you know, I would say the sky's the limit, but like the next mountain is the limit. Ultimately, is how good of a shooter you become, and then people need to become better shooters if they're going to go down that road.
Yeah. And that brings me back to, like those one MOA challenges and stuff like that. You start really thinking about it, and you know how big is the sweet spot on an elk? you know
Pretty big.
16, 18 inches.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. But you make 5 mile an hour wind call miss at 600 yards, and you're shooting at something at 1,000 yards,
uh huh,
and you didn't properly align behind the rifle. You you missed it.
right,
you know
right.
so that's the biggest thing. I am totally cool with the long range hunting as long as somebody has done the training to be able to do it. And there actually is a competition out there now that has me super stoked to see so many hunters involved in, especially Western long range hunters, and it's NRL Hunter.
Hmm.
Um, it has me pumped. So many guys are doing that because it really, I've talked to a couple of guys that were long range hunters that are like, wow, I didn't realize how lucky I had got on so many different hunts that I actually hit this animal. Because now I'm shooting at 2 MOA target at 1,000 yards with this rifle, and I missed it 4 out of 5 times because the wind was off.
Right.
And it it's so cool to see people actually starting to do the training and starting to get really prepared for that type of long range hunting.
Yeah.
If I was going to go out hunting and do that type of stuff, it would be a multiple month tune up to go do that. You know, and shooting out there as well. Um, that's the big thing too, is re-zeroing when you get to where you're going to go hunting or where you're going to compete at, is making sure that you have a hard zero. And if you can collect data out there, if you have access, when you get to where you're going at the elevation you're going to be at and the temperatures you're going to be at, go reconfirm your data.
Mm.
Because that's one of the big things we do as competition shooters, is anywhere we go, we have a 0 day, and then we'll go run the rifles out to 1,000 yards if we're able to, and reconfirm data, because you could be off. Like here we're 753 foot of elevation. If I go out west somewhere and we're at 5,000 foot of elevation, like, my gun's shooting totally different. It's a different speed. It's a different 0 point, and it's different data all the way out to 1,000 yards. So that's a big one. If you're going to spend the money and take the time to go do long range hunting, definitely take that extra day to find a range that you can get access to and get data on your rifle. You
Mhm.
know,
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you feel like these hunters that are taking shots? Well, what's the distance that you feel like become makes you a long range hunter?
I mean, in most circumstances, past 300 yards is starting to get into an elite level of hunting.
Yeah.
It sounds close nowadays, but I mean, a 300-yard shot's a poke.
Uh
you
huh.
know
Right.
and you have to have a rifle to be able to do it. um there I know a guy that goes hunting all over the world, right? Like, big time SCI hunter, like chasing wall mounts, right?
Yep.
And he runs a rifle that I watched him shoot it at 200 yards here at our range. And I'm like, you're take you're taking that on a $50,000 sheep hunt? And he's like, yeah, why? And I'm like, I just saw you shoot a 2.5 inch group. And he's like, yeah, I only shoot it to 300 yards though. He's like, all my shots are inside of 300.
Hmm.
And it's just, it made sense to me then, but I'm still just like, wow. Like,
Right.
I would, if my hunting gun shot like that, I would be pretty upset with myself. Like, you know,
Totally.
but it was a factory rifle that he takes. Because he can break it down into like a suitcase, and it's a lot easier for him to travel with. Um, so it's knowing your equipment, knowing yourself, and knowing what you can do. That being said, I mean, I we have customers that send me photos all the time of 700 yard to 1200 yard shots on elk and moose and caribou. Like it it can be done, but they've done the training behind that. They've done the hand loading, or found the proper ammo for their gun to really do that. And most successful super long range hunters that I know are hand loading their own ammo because they want to know exactly what they're shooting.
Gotcha.
There's you don't want to have an issue,
You're
and
not
if
just going to grab a box of Remington core locks and and saying, "All right, let's do it."
no, no. Now, I mean, that being said, that 223 gun that I have, I mean, I shot a head target at 765 yards with literally Freedom Munitions Pro Match ammo
Hmm.
for 44 cents a round or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so it can be done. If you find the proper ammo for your gun, it can be done. But it's finding that proper ammo and
Hmm.
trusting it and making sure you put enough rounds through it to know. Um,
Let me ask you this real quick, and we're gonna wrap up this podcast Instagram live here in a little bit. But what items are you gonna bring with you on a hunt in regards to making sure you take the shot that's gonna kill an animal? Are you bringing a rear bag? Are you shooting off a tripod? Are you bringing a bipod? What type of situation and stuff are you preparing for?
it really depends on
Let
the environment that you're in, right?
Western
Are
big
you going to
game.
be in are you going to be in a bunch of sage?
Uh-huh.
Like, is there going to be a bunch of saplings? Is tripod? I mean, tripods have revolutionized long range hunting and hunting in general. I would say if you're going to train for hunting out west, I think a tripod is probably the biggest thing that you can have. Um, Most of the guys that I know, they don't. A lot of them don't even take bipods with them anymore. They're just straight into a tripod. You know,
Interesting.
because the carbon ones are so light now. You have some of the three pull legs and the inverted legs where all your adjustments on the top, and they're super quick. They have the ball heads on them. You got an arc them out right into them. You have them out for glassing anyways. Why not put your rifle right in it and shoot it?
Mhm.
And a lot of them you can get low enough that you can use them like a bipod. Like if you're really shooting an elevation down or really shooting up, you can get them super low. They're super stable. And then if you're in a bunch of scrub where you can't get down on the ground and you have to be at a kneeling position to a standing position, the only thing that's going to do it efficiently is a tripod.
Mm. How do you recommend shooting off a tripod?
It There's multiple different ways. Um,
If you're not standing, I'm saying like if we're on a mountainside type hunt, are you trying to sit down behind a tripod? Are you trying to kneel down behind a tripod? What
Sit for sure.
sit?
Yeah, comfort. If you can get comfortable behind the rifle, you can be relaxed and you're going to make a better shot that way. So like if you can sit behind it, that's going to be the best way anytime.
Mhm.
If you can get that low. Some people are really good at kneeling. But kneeling, just because the position you're in, you tend to want to lean forward or back,
Right.
whereas sitting, you're sitting on your butt. It's the most comfortable position you're in all the time, and you can just kind of hold yourself up and be right in it.
Uh-huh.
Like I said, standing, I like pulling into the tripod, grabbing a leg and really pulling into it. They even, in competition side of stuff, I mean, they even have daggone tripod slings that like clip right to your belt and clip to the tripod so you can cinch into it and
Oh,
really
really?
take good shots off of it. Yeah. Yeah.
See, there's so much to learn, and it becomes so much more than just I'm gonna go hunt, and I bought this really expensive rifle that is supposed to shoot or says it's gonna shoot 1 MOA or sub MOA. There's a lot more
Yeah.
to it, and I
Yeah.
think people miss that, which is exactly why we're talking about this tonight.
Yeah, shooting sticks are good too. If you can get good of shooting off shooting sticks, those are great as well. They can get you in a lot of situations um, where they're handy and
Yep,
they're super light too. So,
very true. When you are mounting your gun on a tripod to shoot,
mhm.
do you want it mounted closer to your grip? Do you want it balanced? Do you want it mounted out in front? So, like, what's the point of connection that you want?
I go for balance point.
Okay.
So I want if you look at a lot of modern day stocks, like let's say take a Manners Pro Hunter stock, which a lot of guys are running, like on the PH rifle that we sell.
Yep.
If you notice that ARCA plate is actually back towards the chamber area, which is typically the balance point of the rifle, right? If you've set up a rifle properly, you should be balanced, you know, within an inch or two of that action to chamber face. So if you can clip in as close to that as possible, that allows you to take your hands off the rifle and it'll sit balanced on the tripod. You don't ever want it to be where it's too muzzle heavy or too butt stock heavy to where it's wanting to tip the tripod over or it's wanting to fight your ball head, and that's going to help you too with micro adjustments on the tripod itself. When you crack that ball head loose and if you're panning, following a walking target, waiting for him to stop, it's a lot better to have it balanced because you're going to have more control over that reticle as it goes over.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Brother, you've dropped some great knowledge on this episode. I appreciate it.
What was Chris asking? Low SD, low ES, and then low SD and ES at distance that can convert and verify. E- yes, typically. And I say typically, this is crazy because everybody preaches SD and ES, right?
Okay, just for real quick, for the people who are listening to this podcast, can't see Chris's question or statement. He said low SD, standard deviation, low ES. ES stands for what?
Extreme spread.
Extreme spread. Um, and then low SD and ES at distance. So you want to do it close and then verify at distance as well, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that I basically think that's what he's saying. I have seen more than I can count rifles that have single digit SDs and double digit ESs, which is really good for like factory ammo. You're gonna see like, I mean, on a good gun, like my 223 had a 15 SD, right? And the ES on it was like 40, which is for hand loading, that's high. For factory ammo, that's on a low end normally. I mean, there's some stuff that you can get into that you can get single digit SDs out of, but I have seen tons of rifles that have single digit SDs that don't shoot good groups.
Mm.
And the problem is if it doesn't shoot good groups at 100 yards, it's not going to shoot good groups at 1,000 yards. So it's having to be able to tune your rifle for groups and then SD and ES. One of our shooters he has a world record at 1,000 yards with one of his guns, and he's won tons of long range tournaments. Just different bench rest matches and steel plate matches and stuff. And he tunes for accuracy and then tunes that accuracy node into a low SD node. So yes, low SD and ES are great. Um, you want to find that accuracy node first and then hand load and tune your rifle into a low SD and ES. Um, so that's just a big thing. Um, but I mean, back to the kid stuff. If you have the ability to be able to take your kids out and teach them, it is a lifelong lesson that they know that puts them ahead of the majority of people in the world anymore. And not everybody that listens to this podcast, may be a follower of Christ. But being able to teach your kids protection and defense and knowing how to handle a firearm in the proper ways is going to give them an advantage later in life that most of the world doesn't have. And that is a blessing that we live in America and we're able to do that with our children. So I think looking at it from the perspective of it is a gift that you can pass on to your kids to know the freedoms that we have and to know that they can protect and defend themselves inside of their own home on their own property. And it doesn't even have to be like, everybody always thinks it's like human to human type stuff, but like, dude, look at the people that have mountain lions in their areas or bears or snakes. It could be anything like that. It could be a rabid coyote. You don't know what it is, but your kids having the ability to take care of themselves in a situation like that is just it's it's a gift, man. And especially in today's world where like I know you travel, I travel, like knowing that my wife and kids know how to handle the firearms in my house and they're able to take care of themselves, or they're able to I shoot a daggone raccoon that's trying to eat my egg laying hens. They can hold the fort down. I don't have to worry about them, and that is just a huge thing to pass on to your family. That, like I said, I'd say what 95, 98% of the world can't do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know,
So true. So true.
and taking that curiosity out of them too. They always say curiosity killed the cat. Well, if you kill the curiosity, then you won.
Yeah, it's true. It's a safer world, right?
100%. I mean, think about it. When my grandpa was in school, they had a daggone 22 shooting team.
Right.
Like they shot in the high school gym. Like they didn't have this stuff in society that they have now.
Yeah.
And it was a plighter society because there was no curiosity anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
So true.
and
So true.
it's wild.
Hey, love the new website. You updated it. Looks great.
A little
And
bit. There's more new stuff coming here in the next couple of weeks too.
can you tease that at all? Anything you wanna share?
So yeah, we'll be at GunCon in Cleveland, Ohio at the end of June, which is it's a content creator public show, exhibitor show, put on by John Patton from TGC News or the Gun Collective on YouTube. I saw it was in our backyard and was like, yo, like, let us get in on this, So we're going to be up there. We're going to be launching 4 brand new rifle models
Cool.
at GunCon. We have a new hunting rifle coming out for all those night hunters out there, you know.
Sweet.
So if you want to rock thermal or like a clip-on night vision or clip-on thermal, we have a rifle coming out for that. We have a super lightweight, decently affordable, like I would say probably on the lower end of affordable, like full carbon custom rifles coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, We have a brand new like PRS, like full match gun coming out on a foundation stock, the Samson MS1 stock. We have that coming out, full match build on that, and then we're even going to release a PRS production rifle too.
Oh, cool.
So, little. So on the night hunting gun, it's going to be a lighter weight, truly night vision setup rifle. So if you're a coyote hunter, a hog hunter down in Texas, stuff like that, it's going to be a rifle setup for that type of environment. Nice carbon fiber stock, set up Arca rails, Picatinny rails, night vision bridge on it. Top tier action. It'll have our Prometheus action in there, so it doesn't have all the skeletonizing like the Nanook. So it's a little more closed up action for dirt and debris and things like that. So we're cutting weight in places that make sense, but keeping weight in places that keeps functionality up. Because that's one thing with like the super lightweight rifles is you have to start skeletonizing everything. And well, thanks, Chris. Chris said, thanks for the convo. Kelbly's builds a wonderful product. Really appreciate all the info. Well, we thank you for hanging out tonight. And
Yeah.
like, you ever need anything from us, my dad, myself, my father, and Eric answer the phones around here, and we all work in this day to day and love helping customers. The light rifle is going to be an all carbon fiber, more cost affordable type rifle, carbon barrel, carbon stock, our Atlas light action in it, and set up more for the everyday type hunter to even the backpack hunter if they wanted to, built to those same type of standards. So
Cool.
we'll have those coming out here soon.
Dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. Can't wait to see how those turn out and what they look like, and it'll be fun.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
I love it, brother. Thank you so much for hopping on this show. Thanks for doing that Instagram live tonight, sharing your wisdom and insight and everything that you got going on. Your beard looks manly, by the way. Savage. Just that's a big beard.
I've been growing it since the start of COVID.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
You haven't trimmed it
Yeah.
at all?
No.
So cool.
I mean, it's got to get cut off here soon, though.
I love it. All right, brother. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Listeners, thank you so much for checking out this podcast. Remember, if you want hunting to last for generations to come, or even shooting, Second Amendment, it starts with you. It starts with you passing it on, because mentorship is conservation. You got to be the change you want to see in the world. Thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you liked it, go give it a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe, leave a rating, review, comment, all that stuff. Go to kelbly.com. Go check out what they have. Pick yourself up an action, a rifle, all that, and give them a call, because you'll more than likely get Ian on the phone talking with you, and they got amazing customer service. Be blessed. For Ian Kelbly at Kelbly Rifles, Johnny Mac, Soul Seekers, freedom on everybody. Stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to support the show, you can always like, share, subscribe, and leave a rating, as it helps us share our mission of mentorship is conservation. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of Soul Seekers Nation as we transform lives through primal adventure.